everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Alex and today I'm going to be bringing you my June wrap up. Now you guys didn't see a whole lot of me in the month of June, but that doesn't mean that I wasn't reading. I did wind up completing 14 books throughout the month of June and we're going to talk about those books today. So I'm going to break this down just like always. I'm going to start out by giving you guys some stats about everything that I read in the month of June. Then I'm going to quickly recap what I've already talked about in my mid-June wrap up and then we will get into the rest of the books. But before we get into today's video, if you're new here and you're not already, be sure to go down to the subscribe button as well as the bell icon down below so that you never miss out on any of my content. And without further ado, let's get started. So I'm going to start out by giving you guys some quick stats, and this does encompass all 14 books that I read in the month of June. So first, starting out with source, it is no surprise that the most books that I read this month was from Libby, and I read 9 books from there. I also read 2 books each from NetGalley and Libro.fm, as well as 1 physical arc. As far as age range, I read 1 middle grade, and then the majority of books that I read were YA, 9 of those, and then 4 adult as well. As far as format, it was almost a tie. I wound up reading 7 audiobooks, 6 ebooks, and 1 physical book. For genres, I read 4 fantasy, 6 contemporary, 2 romance, 1 sci-fi, and 1 nonfiction. And then for ratings, I had a pretty good reading month there as well. The lowest rating that I gave was 3 stars, and I only gave that to 1 book. Then I had 2 3.5 star reads and 6 4-star reads, 3 4.5 star reads, and 2 5-star reads. So now very quickly, I will tell you the books that I have already talked about in my mid-June wrap-up. If you have not seen that yet, I will link a card up above so you can go hear my in-depth thoughts. So first I read The Young Elites by Marie Lu, which I give a 3 out of 5 stars. How the Penguins Saved Veronica by Hazel Pryor, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. The Honest Enneagram by Sarah Jane Case, which I gave a 5 out of 5 stars. This Is All Your Fault by Amina May Safi, which I gave a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Tyler Johnson Was Here by J. Coles, which I gave a 5 out of 5 stars. George by Alex Gino, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. And Ruin and Rising by Lee Bardugo, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. So after that, the next book that I completed in the month of June was Little and Lion by Brandy Colbert. Now this book is about our main character, Suzette, and at the beginning of the novel, she has been in boarding school in New England, and she comes back home to LA. She's reconnecting with some friends, but the main person that she wants to reconnect with is her stepbrother, Lionel. Now, Lionel has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and it is really kind of taking a toll on him. He is struggling with the diagnosis, and Suzette really wants their relationship to get back to the way that it was, but eventually throughout the novel, Suzette finds herself actually falling in love with the same girl that her brother has a crush on. Now this is one that I have heard quite a bit of hype about in recent years, and I'm happy to say that I very, very much enjoyed it. There is quite a bit of representation in this novel. One of our main characters has bipolar disorder, one of our main characters is bisexual, and there is Own Voices Black representation in here as well. So a bunch of representation all over the board, which I really enjoyed. Now I cannot speak as an Own Voices reviewer for the Black or the bipolar disorder representation, but for the bisexual representation, I do feel like it was done really well, and I especially enjoyed in this novel the fact that our main character Suzette is not really sure where she falls on the spectrum. She's wondering, is she actually bisexual or is she only attracted to girls? She doesn't really know. She's figuring that out, and I felt like that journey was really authentic and realistic. I also really enjoyed the family dynamic in here, of course. We see Suzette and Lionel try to build their relationship back up after it was damaged in the past. And this whole book in general was really thought-provoking and intriguing. So if you are looking for something that is a little bit more serious, covers some more serious topics, but in general is still fun and light to get through, this I think strikes a really nice balance without pushing anything under the rug. Really enjoyed this one overall, and I'm definitely going to be reading more from Brandy Colbert. I'm giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars. After that, I actually completed my first physical arc that I have ever received. So thank you to the author and editor for sending me a copy of Vagrant Summer by David S. McCrae. This is an arc that released on June 20th. Now this book is a science fiction dystopian novel that is set in this land of Eden. And when we start this novel, we are 2 months into the revolution. And we are following a couple of main characters. We mainly follow our character Dartmouth, and he is a revolutionary trying to kind of navigate this new world and win against the rulers. And he winds up meeting this girl named Mika who is searching for her father, and Dartmouth agrees to kind of help her go on this journey and find her father, and a whole bunch of other chaos ensues throughout the course of this novel. Now, a lot of of YA dystopian has been obviously in the forefront of our media over the last 10 years, I would say, but it definitely has gone to the back burner in the last few years. But if you're itching for a little taste of that again, I think this is definitely one that should be on your radar. Now, I will say it was really interesting to me that this book started a couple of months into the revolution. Usually in YA dystopian or dystopian in general, we see it happen. So we're going from how it was before and how things are starting to change, and we watch the revolution changing. Whereas in here, the revolution has already started. So since that was the setup, it did take me a little while to kind of get acquainted with the situation and who everybody was and how this had come to be. But once I was in it, then I was really invested in the story. I would definitely be interested in kind of a prequel novel to this, where we do get to see how life was before and the beginnings of the revolution, since this starts 2 months in. And I think one of the strong suits of this novel is the characters. There are a bunch of them, but once you figure out who's who, they do have their own distinct personalities and they work really well together. It was interesting to get to see all of their dynamics kind of play off of each other. I'm definitely excited to continue on in this world when the sequel comes out. I know that we're going to be following a different one of our main characters in the sequel, so I'm really excited for that. If you are looking to support a self-published author and get back into YA dystopian, like I said, definitely keep your eyes peeled for this one. I'm giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I completed was Dress Codes for Small Towns by Courtney Stevens. Now, this book follows our main character, Billy, and she is from a small southern town. She is a preacher's daughter, and she does not fit the mold that everybody thinks that she should be. She is a little bit off the beaten path, and her town really doesn't know what to think of her, but she does have a really close, tight-knit group of friends that she hangs out with. This is really a character-driven story as we get to follow Billy kind of figure out her sexuality and her identity. So that's kind of where the novel goes. There's not too much of a crazy plot in here, but it is really just a character exploration of Billy trying to navigate her life. Now, this is one that I did go into, honestly, having pretty high expectations. I know that Books and Lala, this is one of her favorites, if not her favorite book of all time, and I totally trust her opinion. So I did go into this expecting quite a bit, and I'm really happy to say that it lived up to the hype. Courtney Stevens is honestly becoming one of my favorite authors. All of her books, I think, have been at least a 4-star, maybe even higher. I also recently read The June Boys by the same author and really enjoyed that one, so I think I'm just on a hot streak. One thing that I really particularly love about all of her books is how real and authentic the characters feel. Courtney Stevens just has a talent of portraying the issues of being a teenager and putting them in a really realistic light, and theirs was definitely the same for this novel. I really related to it in not just relating to the character, but also the setting. Our main character lives in a small town, and they do reference Nashville, Tennessee quite a bit because one of the other main characters in the friend group is from Nashville, and he gets kind of some flashbacks throughout the novel, which I am from the Nashville area, so that was really interesting to me as well. Just in general, this is a really well-crafted contemporary story about trying to find yourself and accept yourself in a town that you're not sure will accept you. So if you're looking for a really well done, character-driven YA novel, this is definitely one to be aware of. I wound up giving it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I picked up The Midnight Lai by Marie Rukowski. Now, this is a fantasy novel that follows our main character, Niram, and she is a member of the lowest caste of their society. So a lot of the novel is really talking about how they are treated so much differently than the higher castes. Well, Niram winds up meeting this other character named Sid and being told of some whole other worlds and different parts of the world that Niram was never familiar with before, didn't even know existed. There is a love story in here and just fantasy elements in general, so that's this. This book is honestly pretty hard to summarize because the plot, to be honest, didn't really stick with me. What I enjoyed about this more than the plot itself was the romance. I feel like the romance in this was really well done and something that I was just really invested in general, so that's definitely the strong suit of this. Whereas the plot itself just kind of felt like any other YA fantasy. It didn't exactly stand out to me. I will probably more than likely continue with this series whenever the next books are released, but I do think I'm gonna wind up having to reread this because I even now, like a week and a half later, don't really remember a whole lot about the plot, but the romance was really good. Wound up giving this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Don't really have a ton of thoughts on it. Then after that, I picked up Intercepted by Alexa Martin. Now this book follows our main character, Marley, and she is dating this NFL football player. They've been dating for years and years and years, and everybody's asking, why aren't you engaged? And she's like, I don't know, because he won't propose to me. And then she finds out that he has been cheating on her, and he has all of these other women on the side. She vows that she's never gonna date another athlete again, but there is another man named Gavin that has just been signed on to the Denver Mustangs, which is where she lives, the team that her old boyfriend played for. And it turns out that Gavin was actually a one-night stand that Marley had in the past. So this is kind of a hate to love, second chance romance kind of story centered around the NFL. I am finding out actually that I really enjoy sports romances. I really enjoyed the Romance Book Club, which was themed around baseball, and this one is obviously themed around football. I did really enjoy that aspect of it, and I liked the romance in general, but this wasn't my favorite story overall, and I think part of that has to do with the writing style. A lot of people have commented about the use of hashtags in this book. The narrator, the main character, likes to narrate her life in hashtags, which became a little bit of an overkill to me by the end of it, and I felt like it was really unnecessary, but that's just my opinion. And additionally, this is obviously a new adult / adult romance. There are some sexy times in here, but it was a little bit too much for my taste. It is incredibly open door. You're pretty much there in the bed with them. So if you are uncomfortable with that, if you don't like that, either don't read it or skip those parts like I did. I just kind of scrolled past. But regardless, I did really like the characters. I liked where the plot went, and it was a fun and entertaining story overall. So I probably will be continuing with this companion series and reading more from this author. Well, I'm giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I had an advanced listening copy from Libro FM of The Extraordinaries by TJ Klune, and this one comes out on July 14th. Now, this book is TJ Klune's YA debut, and it is kind of a coming-of-age story about Nick, who is our main character. He has been diagnosed with ADHD, and he is also queer, and he is the most popular fan fiction writer for The Extraordinaries. Now, this book takes place in a world where superheroes are real, and throughout the course of this book, Nick actually has a chance encounter with one of the superheroes that he has been writing fan fiction for and is hopelessly in love with. Chaos ensues from there, and he winds up getting involved with superheroes and supervillains and all other kinds of cool sci-fi stuff. Now, I was actually really pleasantly surprised by this one. I didn't really know a whole lot of what to expect going in. I've never read from this author before, but I did really enjoy it. I felt like the storyline was really fun, and the element of the superheroes was just something really cool, something that I've never read about before. This book is being pitched as Fangirl meets Renegades, which I've never read Renegades before, but I can definitely see the comparisons there. This one was just really fun. It was a really quirky writing style, a great friend group that was all really supportive of each other. And there were a lot of really good conversations that went on in this book about mental health and queerness and figuring out your identity and disability and just all kinds of really interesting discussions that are important and really need to be had, especially in YA. But while those topics were definitely handled with care and given the attention that they deserve, the book in general was still light and fun. I'm definitely going to be looking more into this author in the future, and I want to be giving this one a 4.5 out of 5 stars. And the last book that I completed in the month of June was The Inn at Rose Harbor by Debbie McCumber. Now, honestly, this is not a book that I ever would have thought that I would pick up. I kind of feel like a grandmother reading Debbie McCumber, but I was highly satisfied with this romance. Now, this book does follow a few different main characters, but we start out with our main character, Jo Marie Rose, who before the beginning of the novel has lost her husband. He passed away in Afghanistan, and she has taken the life insurance money and trying to start a new life for herself, she opens up this bed and breakfast. So not only are we following her throughout the novel, but we also follow her first 2 guests at the B&B, Joshua and Abby. Now, the inn is located in Cedar Cove, and if you've ever read Debbie McCumber before, you might know that Cedar Cove is her big series that she's probably the most known for. So this is kind of a spin-off. I have never read Cedar Cove before, but we apparently get to see some of the characters that were in there. But regardless, our first guest, Joshua, has come back to Cedar Cove to take care of his ailing stepfather. They have never really had a great relationship, but Joshua is the only family member that he has left, and Joshua is in charge of getting his stepfather into hospice and helping to take care of him at the end of his life. We also follow our other guest, Abby, who has returned to Cedar Cove for her brother's wedding. And Abby, after this big tragedy happened in her past, she moved away as far away as she could get, and she hasn't been home until now, and she's trying to kind of face the past and heal from it. Now, like I said, this is definitely one that I never would have seen myself picking up. I actually picked it up for an Romanceathon to fit the prompt of a book with more than 5 words in the title, 5 or more words in the title, but I didn't even end up finishing it during Romanceathon, but it was still really, really good. This was a quick story. It was really simple. If you're looking for a really complex and nuanced romance, this is not going to be that. This was fast, this was easy, this was fun, this was romantic, this was satisfying, heartbreaking, heartwarming. It was really everything that I wanted. I really honestly loved all of the characters, especially Jo Marie. Really enjoyed getting to know her, and I know the future novels in this series just follow other guests that come into the B&B, so we're still getting it more of Jo Marie with some other rotating cast members, which I'm really excited for. This book sets up for a series that I expect is going to be the kind of thing that I want when I'm in a reading slump. Something really fast, easy to get through. The writing is basic, but still intriguing and captivating. I can definitely understand why Debbie McCumber has made such a name for herself in this industry, and I'm definitely going to be picking up more from her. So I'm glad I picked this up, even though it was a little bit out of my comfort zone. You never know what could happen. Really enjoyed this. Wound up giving it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. But that is it for everything that I read in the month of June. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and let me know your favorite read from June. As always, if you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to go down and give it a big thumbs up, as well as hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon down below so that you never miss out on any of my content. So until next time, bye!